Welcome to the Cyber Funnel Podcast, brought to you by Amplifyed, where we feature the top minds in cybersecurity.
Welcome to the Cyber Funnel Podcast, where we talk to some of the top minds around cybersecurity and marketing. I'm your host, Thorin Compton, and some of my great past conversations include Amplified owner Scott Johnson and digital marketing expertise and just extraordinaire Renee Haas from Red Seal. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome in Tom Baker, data modernization expert, as we like to call him, into the Cyber Funnel. How are you today, Tom?
Good, Thorin. It's good to see you after so long, man.
It is always good to see you, man. I'm real happy to have you on today. I've been really excited about this conversation.
Likewise, my friend.
Yeah. Hey, before we get going, though, as always, I have to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by Amplified, the SEO and GEO agency for cybersecurity companies. Amplified serves cybersecurity marketing teams by driving more leads from Google and AI search. We handle all the heavy lifting and know the exact levers to pull to get you more SQLs. Tom knows all about that as a former client. We really loved working with him. You'll see from this, like, we love to work with great people that have great minds. Learn more at amplify.io. That's amplifyed.io. All right. Like I said, I have Tom Baker, data modernization expert, joining me today. Tom really is deep in the world of AI adoption, data modernization, and I'm excited to get his takes on the current landscape of AI and like AI governance. So I hope you're ready for some good questions, Tom.
I'm ready, man. Expert. We'll unpack what expert means and what it doesn't mean here, but I'm excited nonetheless to just have a good conversation.
If we have to get into, expert in like what you feel like is expert versus like what actually is, we can totally get into that. Everybody has a little bit of, what's the term I'm looking for there, where you don't feel like you actually belong in the space that you're in.
Imposter syndrome?
There we go, imposter syndrome. And I'm just here to tell you that you're not an imposter. You're fantastic, Tom.
Thank you, Thorin.
All right, hey man, I got to hit you with the lightning round real quick though. This is where if we had, like graphics and stuff like that, we'd go, but we don't. So we just do it with our mouth. All right, man. My first question for you, and I think I've asked you this before, but we're gonna get it on record. Are you a Doctor Who fan?
I know of Doctor Who because of my name.
Because of your name, yes.
And I've only visited the wiki page because who hasn't looked up their name in Wikipedia?
For those that don't know, Tom Baker is the fourth Doctor in the Doctor Who franchise. He was a Doctor back in the 70s, one of the longest running ones. He had a really iconic scarf he wore. It was like kind of a patchwork scarf. And every single time I've known Tom for years, and every time I see his name, I'm just like, he's got perfect Doctor Who fan name.
And it is not the first time you've asked me that. Too.
I didn't think so, but hey, you know what? It's the first time I've asked you on the podcast. So, hey, we're gonna roll that into I think a good transition into what did you want to be when you grew up?
At first, I wanted to be a pilot for many years, and when I was starting in ROTC for the Navy, I realized that pilots don't just get to fly around like in the movie Top Gun and do whatever they want. They actually have to follow plans. And that seemed a lot more boring than what I thought for like 12 years. So I changed the path.
I have to give you props, though. You did at least do the hack of going to the Navy where they actually like weirdly have more planes than the Air Force does.
They do.
Yeah, that was so at least you understood the assignment on that end. So
yeah, I guess so.
I love it, man.
Quick pivot, so it was funny. My mom was super shocked by that. She's like, "You went to the Navy and didn't fly after all?" It's like, well, that's how it goes.
That's how it goes. It's just like it sounds boring, and there's other fun things to do in there. So, hey, what are you a music guy? And what was your first concert?
First concert was Rush 2112 in Las Vegas as a 14-year-old with my best friend and his parents, That's the genre of music I grew up with. My dad was always playing classic rock in the garage. My mom was like a hardcore 90s era country fan. So yeah, so it was like Reba McEntire or Rush at my house at all times.
Would you classify that as your favorite concert too, or do you have another one?
It's the best concert. I've wanted to see Metallica before they're off the road.
Right.
They have a dome tour going on, ironically, back in Las Vegas, and like
interesting
experience. Yeah. but I can't swing it with a baby on the way, man. So
It's dude, it was funny when we had our baby last year. We made a point of like, all right, we're gonna go to concerts here in Kansas City. So we went to
yeah.
like three or four concerts. We went to some of some more modern country ones. But
Mhm.
yeah, like it feels like you have to squeeze things in, but then at the same time, it's like you gotta get stuff ready. So
Yeah.
man, I'm so jealous. I'm a bassist, so like I also love
Oh
Rush.
yeah, Geddy Lee.
Oh man, that's fantastic. All right. Well, that blows out my next question, but we're just going to go into it either way. And especially with like a baby moon kind of maybe on the horizon.
Yeah.
What is your preferred vacation destination?
Kauai, hands down.
Nice. So
Yeah.
Europe. Well, Hawaii's weird because you can get beach and mountains in that, right?
Yeah. Kauai, the island specifically, the K, Kauai Island, because
Hmm.
we grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so we like the outdoors, we like the hiking, the rainforest, the trails. So, that's the Garden Island. And our second favorite is Maui, but
Mm,
Kauai is so compact.
right. It's
You can get around. Maui's big, and so we keep returning. My second destination is Japan, and
nice.
I was there for a couple of years through the Navy and just fell in love with the culture, and it's so different than everything we've got here in the West, and clean, safe, amazing food. So if I have a runner up, it's Japan.
I could just go eat my way through Japan all day. Just give me all of the ramen that you can give.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Okay, so we need to have a second podcast about Japan and
Just
about the
food
the
in
outlying because I've been to Alaska as well, and I need to get to Hawaii. Yeah, yeah. So all right, so all right, cool.
Yeah,
So
I'll send you a
part
list.
two coming up. All right, hey man, let's get into the actual thing here. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this. I'm just gonna hit you with a big generic one at the beginning. What are your thoughts on like the current state of AI and what it's doing to businesses right now?
Yeah, man. I was first exposed to this technology pressure problem while I was in the Navy and had a day job, but on the side, just, there's a push in every industry, whether it's government or private, that whatever the next big thing is, I feel like it follows there's a common pressure that if we don't adopt this, we're going to get left behind, and so I'm seeing that on such a massive scale, and that's the way I feel like it's being marketed as well. Is almost a don't get left behind, be an early adopter. So I think what that's doing to businesses is it's putting pressure. It's putting pressure on people to use it from the ground up at the operational level for
Right.
sure. And then obviously, maybe more for leadership, they're looking at it strategically and they're thinking in terms of threat dynamics for their competitors if
Right.
they don't adopt, or or they're thinking pragmatically and just trying to apply it to specific solutions, whatever that business is solving for. Um, so my thought on that is some of that pressure is healthy and positive, and that's what drives competition and innovation. And good on the AI wave,
Right.
because if not AI, would be something else,
Yeah, exactly.
like the .com era, that I was like in diapers for. But the other side of that is I think it's producing some unproductive effects as well. And I am seeing, at least from my seat, you know, ad adoption without readiness.
Yeah.
So trying to slapstick the house up without letting the foundation, even taking inventory of a foundation. What is a foundation? Data, infra, systems, cyber, processes, people readiness, all those types of things.
Right.
Yeah,
Uh, when let's dive into it readiness anymore a little bit more. When
sure.
you say AI readiness, like what do you mean? And with like adoption and that kind of stuff, are you talking about using AI internally? Is it how you're storing your data? Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, so the way that you frame that is interesting because there is an infrastructure way to look at readiness. And I think if I had three buckets, I would say it's your data, number one, because every AI model out there is really just an algorithm looking back at a data set
Yep.
and using compute power and memory storage to produce, a set of outputs based on conditions that you really help drive, especially if you're good at writing your prompts, right? So data is a big one, and that's definitions, standards, data governance, the management, the pipelines. I think the other one is like integration.
Yep.
So your systems abilities to talk between themselves and their overall connection is either an inhibitor or an incredible like enabler for like an AI model, right? So does the AI model have to look at 26 disparate systems? Because,
Right.
and again, I have data in all of those, or do I have this interconnected web that's really well managed and sequenced? And so integration is like just one in itself. And then I think there's like a shared systems perspective,
Okay. Yeah.
cloud or DevSecOps pipelines and things like that. Um, you know, those already reduce a lot of M&O costs for businesses when they focus on shared services capabilities. I think it's more and more an imperative not only to move to the cloud, but to enable AI, right? So a lot of the principles that enable cloud enable, I think, readiness, if you will, around AI. So that's the infra side of the house,
Right.
that's pipe laying. Um, there's a people side of the house around AI readiness that's super neglected.
Yeah.
I think, and um, man, that requires first and foremost vision and leadership, like anything that you set out to do at a company. It's not just we're going to adopt AI, it's we're going to use AI for these specific applications in the same mindset that you build products to solve certain problems. I think, and getting people around that vision and getting everybody to swim in a singular direction, that would then require a certain type of orientation, a certain AI product adoption that fits that for you,
Right.
training, right? All of those. We're not talking about like a lot of these are concepts that have been around for hundreds of years in businesses. It's interesting.
Exactly.
And so I think that people side though is often neglected because, hey, we've got minimum data integration shared services, let's go, right? And
Yeah.
you're required to use X AI system for the following work, report out.
Right. Right.
um,
I love that you touched on training there because so first shout out Scott Johnson because for a year and a half, like we at Amplified have been really in on the like we're training, we're doing trainings, we're talking with people that are on the forefront of utilizing AI, how to utilize it to better do processes, how to utilize it to better do the actual optimization side that we're worried about, and how to better show up in front of those. But that's time, that's effort, that's putting in actual training. How much of the actual like making sure your workforce is ready to even have that change, how much does that play into it?
yeah, yeah, and a lot of AI training that's out there is we are so early in this wave.
Hmm.
Most of the training that we can find, whether it's open source training or MOOC courses or Coursera, you name it, is orienting you to what AI is and the types of opportunities that you could do with it. But for AI training to stick at your organization, you need to hone and create AI tooling that matches up to the product or service that you're delivering, right? And
Right.
that requires it's like, wouldn't that require an investment of expertise before we brought it out to our people from the training team? And so that foundation, that's another foundation laying component, right? Is we need SMEs purely around AI
Yep.
flavor for our business before we can create the tailored training that right enables success.
Success. Absolutely. Yeah. I think quick little history lesson for those listening if they didn't know this already. The internet actually was available before the 90s. It was just to the military. I find your military background really interesting because obviously like forefront of technology a lot of the time. How did you get into the AI, ready to space, really just this whole space? What was your journey like? And did it like, I know you mentioned it kind of even started back when you were in the Navy.
Yeah, like long story short, personal dabbling expanded out to more. um, yeah, so in the Navy, it happened to be at my first command at my ship. There were some brilliant people one of the men that I met. His name was Dave Nobles, and he pioneered this innovation program that we dubbed the Athena Project.
Hmm.
And the entire concept was to take innovations, ideas, areas for improvement from sailors, from the deck plates, the people actually turning the wrenches and working on those systems, right? And taking those all the way up to the developers, the engineers, the complex, if you will, that created it in the first place or could improve it. And, you know, they would never otherwise really have the opportunity to work through the military industrial complex to voice, hey, this is really what I need. And I think the fix is a $3 bolt rather than $1 million improvement that would take 3 years, right? So I thought that idea that really sparked something for me. I was really privileged to like partner on that and kind of help with facilitating some of the sessions and stuff. But that innovation mindset is where it started. And that was sort of pre-AI boom.
Yeah.
We started to look at AI as a concept through data in the military. Obviously, like on a naval ship with all those systems, you process huge quantities of data, a lot of algorithm coding complexity. And so that is where the seed was planted for me. And then when I started to get into consulting work, naturally, we have a pressure in the consulting side to learn while we are also delivering constantly. Like we are having to absorb the same things that our clients are, and but they're paying us to get out in front of that for them and to absorb some of that risk and to advise, right, that there are best practices and things like that. And so I found AI to be a huge opportunity to start to deliver. And I would put that analogy like today. Like that's why I was laughing about the word expert is every day I feel like I go to work as a junior learner in so many of these concepts and then, flip the head in a meeting and I'm trying to advise genuinely and truthfully and give the limitations of my knowledge, but also deliver something for my client that's valuable. And, if that's not your AI journey anywhere, I feel like there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors happening, right? In the AI companies, I feel like are doing that. So
it's so funny because that's kind of where we're at. Like Amplified is cybersecurity and we're experts. But the reason that we're experts in it is because 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we were doing SaaS and we kind of fell into some cybersecurity. And at the time there were no experts. So we're kind of experts because we do it and because there's just not a lot of just in that niche. Like there's not people that are specifically focused on helping cybersecurity, helping AI readiness, like, governance, data governance, IT and that kind of stuff, specifically with SEO. There's a few now. It's always fun being a trend center. But getting out in front of it is really interesting. I also love that you kind of touched on the dirty secret about LLMs, that they've actually been around for years. And it's just now getting into the public space where where everybody sees the Claudes and the chat GPTs and that kind of stuff. Speaking of those, like obviously everybody knows about that. Everybody knows about, kind of some other LLMs and how they're being used to it. What are some other data modernization tactics or things going on that are a little lesser known?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lift and shift trap. We are talking about not being ready to pick up and move data, whether you're picking it up and you're trying to migrate from like on-prem to the cloud. That's kind of a classic example.
Yeah.
Or you're just trying to throw your data into an AI model. This lift and shift trap is that the technology will just auto solve what gritty foundation work really is still the best path for me to get that stuff figured out.
Right.
That's the one I think it has the biggest financial bite. I feel like vendors will not tell you that, right? Because they love your problem set and they love to turn a feature set into kind of a magic pill solve for all your ailments. And there's an accountability and ownership journey in that. I would like to be ready, but can I soberingly state whether I am or not? And that in itself, I think, is a leadership capability. That's the one that stands out. The other one for me is that we're not really seeing a technology problem. We're seeing failure to agree on what modern means for a specific business.
That's
So, a lot of organizations are buying platforms before they've been able to define the problem. And cloud migrations that are supposed to take like 18 months on paper, they become these 3-year sagas again, because data quality and governance and things weren't addressed at first. And now we're having to parallel those with our infrastructure.
there seems to be a recurring theme in these discussions that we've been having on this podcast that
Mhm.
understanding who you are, like a real snapshot of who you are at this moment is
Mhm.
kind of the base point because you can't make yourself move forward if you don't know where you are, if you don't even know if you have wheels, you can't miss a train if there's no tracks laid, fine, the train's going to get moving, but it's not going to go anywhere because there's no tracks actually moving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and on that thorn, the other thing is like, do we understand ourselves, what our capabilities are? But before we set out, and this should be no secret, but it's like you need to define success.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
you after solving for? Um, that's step one. The other classic piece that follows there is, are we going to be able to measure that to tell? And so I think a lot of times I end up recommending taking an incremental approach.
Yeah.
I love the agile methodology. I love lean process improvement. Um, just this concept of, man, AI is a big wave. My data problem set is humongous. Look, the most logical thing I can do with limited time and funds is to take a bite,
Yeah.
and for that bite of that problem and the bite of the solution to be right sized, measurable, and that also just allows me to get started without having that planning stall where I have to solve for everything on paper. Again,
Immediately. Yeah.
something that the vendor would love
Yeah.
is for you to look at your entire data set as a singular issue and
Hmm.
for them to bite it off as a singular solution. But that's that's you're not limited to that, right? You can take logical bites down verticals, systems, and data elements that make sense to you.
So say I'm okay, that leads me great into this hypothetical. Say I'm a data manager for a state entity or something like that with 20, 30 years of backlog data. I want to simplify this thing. I want to make this more modernized. Am I screwed? Like what's the plan of attack there?
Well, you're not screwed. I would say there are a lot of tools to identify hotspots, pains, problems, and how big and little those things are relative to each other so that you can find your good places to start. One example is pointing to the eight wastes model of
Hmm.
Six Sigma. So you got to love the Japanese in coming up with methodologies that are tried and true. And I believe I read a book called Toyota Kata that was recommended to me by a lean coach, Holly Valkama.
Hmm.
She was outstanding and explained that lean was born in a factory, and it was
Hmm.
really a Toyota born way of thinking. And they were looking at everything in terms of efficiency, of course, but also through the lens of pain. So if you're that data manager and you've had tenure at an organization that long, chances are if we put a piece of paper in front of you, you would scratch out pain pretty passionately. And you
Right.
need more
Yes.
paper, right? Like, um, and those are super logical places to start. You don't need sophisticated tools. You can run assessments. I think those are great validators through
Right.
through certain lenses, is to run assessments and say, let's quantify.
Right.
Um, but people know, man. I mean, people know where the pain in the business is, and that usually associates to problems like data problems, systems issues. I have a spreadsheet because I don't trust this system, right? This thing works better for me. Why? So does that answer that question?
It 100% did. And it leads me into another one, which I think is a great thing with, you displaying so much expertise, which you have on this, which anybody listening to this is like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. So this is an expert. So there we go. We've defined what an expert is, Tom. Uh, who has helped you all along the way? Who are maybe some mentors and some good pieces of advice that you've gotten
Yeah.
on this journey?
Well, some key mentors I've had, people like Sultan Beg at Change Analytics, who I know you know well, Thorne.
He's great.
Just a great brain in the space who can work between the tech and the people side of an organization. And man, what an incredible skill to be able to digitize
Yeah.
those change pains is
Hmm.
what he can do is transform pain into code to solve for things, right? If we could all do that, I think we'd find success in our career.
Yeah. Not a
Um,
skill I own.
yeah, so Sultan, Beth Montauk Schmalz and Kim Bailey,
Hmm.
who couple of owners, along with like Jenna Train and Aaron Daly and others, they were also leaders at 71 and Change who just they built one of the greatest people practices that I've ever been a part of, and the change management methodology that no matter what type of flavor of project, whether it was at an apparel company or like an energy organization, to be able to apply a change methodology and let it chameleon into any type of business is just an awesome trade. I mentioned Dave Nobles back in the military. Uh,
Hmm.
I believe that he's over at Microsoft now,
Oh,
if
fabulous.
calling right. Um, but while in the Navy, somebody who can operate as a military officer, which would be a metaphor for you have a day job at X department, and be able to carve out the time and the grind and the passion and the networking and diplomacy that's needed to like start an ideation lab and sell it to leadership, get
Yeah.
it formalized by the Secretary of the Navy, which he did. So those are people that come to mind, is to your point, maybe I've had some incredible pillars of people along the way. And every time I've hit one of them, it's getting smashed with a fire hose right in your
Right.
face.
Yeah.
Not only at the speed and expectation that they operate, but like such optimistic ways of looking at the world, right, in these business problems and look twisting it into wait, there's an opportunity here because that's really what it is.
That's so funny because it's really interesting how it does feel like it is a people thing almost first. Like you can
Yeah.
kind of teach yourself some of this other stuff, but like you kind of are on the mentor side, like a little
Mm.
bit of an amalgamation of all the people that have made you. Like some of the editors I've had, like Ross Tatey over at the Marshalltown Times Republican, and people like that have really determined who I kind of am in a business space, even though they don't know SEO, they don't know. It doesn't matter because they shaped you as a human, and that's beautiful. I love that,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah,
Hey,
dude. On the
this
shoulders
has
of
been
giants.
amazing. I've loved having you on, man. I've actually got one last question for you.
Sure.
If you need to find Tom, find him on LinkedIn. There's going to be 1,000 other Tom Bakers on there, but he's fantastic. He's out there. Um, my last question for you is, what is one mistake that any business is making right now when they're going into the AI adoption side?
One mistake that
What's the
business,
main mistake, maybe?
yeah, I think it is adopting without asking your people first. And the asking is a series of questions, which requires a genuine interest in what they think about what you're setting out to do. They probably also have some incredible ideas of the actual application to save you some time and money. And I think businesses are over procuring out of a fear of being left behind
Yeah.
without mapping it to the things that made them a successful business up to that date. Right. I know I'm genericizing that, Thorne, but I think that is what we're seeing everywhere. I feel the personal version of that same pressure, right? At
Yeah.
home,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
And so, if there's opportunity for a quick flip on that, I would just say, there's a readiness journey. It doesn't mean that you can't purchase or start trying something right away. It's just that you need to parallel that readiness as you take bite sizes of the AI journey, right? And let it grow like you would any other capability, I think. Um, that's the
Yeah.
that's the Tom version of that, at least.
We are staring at one giant AI elephant right now. And how do you eat that elephant? One bite at a time. One bite at a time. Hey, Tom, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been spit out the cyber funnel. You still have your clothes on. You're a good man. So I appreciate you, brother, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, we'll talk to you. I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Cyber Funnel Podcast. Tune in next time for more tips and insights, and be sure to click subscribe for future episode updates.